Riordan ain't the Oracle, babes. Failing to save what matters most in the end isn't gonna have a double meaning with a happy ending like it did for Percy Jackson. Even with all of the things that went wrong from book to movie adaptation, the Perry Johansson movies were not ruined by their adaptational inconsistencies. Oh, that hurt a lot more than I thought it would to say. Changing the character's appearance, the plot, or even getting rid of fan-favorite characters altogether, they're not deal-breakers, and in some cases, they're necessary. It's easy to blame surface-level stuff like that, but they're really just symptoms of a larger, deeper problem, one that impacts all of us on a foundational level. So let's talk about it, what the movies got wrong, and how the TV show can save itself from the same fate.
Today, what I'd like to do is give you guys some tips for creating characters of your own.
The Editing Podcast talks a lot about confident versus insecure editing.
Developed this really fascinating insecurity, not trusting the viewer. Trust the audience, trusting them, trust. You have to ask for their trust.
Insecure editing depends on short and snappy edits, convinced that the audience is looking for a reason to click away. Insecure editing isn't even actually a problem. It actually pushes your content out to bigger and broader audiences, which is necessary for growth. Confident editing takes its time, knowing that their target audience will watch the whole thing. It knows how to pace things, doesn't shy away from silence, and usually allows for more depth.
And Rick Riordan exemplifies this in his writing to a T.
Riordan writes like he knows his audience will read his books. I mean, like, seriously, people joke about how they almost didn't read the Heroes of Olympus series because Percy wasn't mentioned until, like, the end of chapter 2, much less in the book at all. But, like, that's like a dead giveaway of confident writing in this case, since Riordan was writing and not editing video. Making a decision like that requires a lot of trust between author and audience. The characters are different, the tone is different, we're exploring a whole new side of mythology, but it sets up the Heroes of Olympus series so perfectly. And that's what confident editing, confident writing looks like. I mean, it could have just pandered to bigger and broader audiences with every new release of a Percy Jackson book. I would have stuck with him through it all. Percy Jackson in high school! I wrote like 10 fanfics about it. Give me the lore! Percy Jackson and Slice of Life and Camp Half-Blood. I want more! But no, Riordan prioritized the quality of story told over whatever would be easiest to gain success. He values his audience enough to give us equal or greater value in every novel he writes. And as a result, we've got a vault full of amazing novels that have depth and are meaningful. Perry Johansson movies, though, they ooze insecure editing. I do want to clarify that I'm not saying that insecure editing is automatically a bad thing, because I love me a shallow video that I don't have to think hard about and can just be passively entertained by as I eat my dinner. What I am saying is that the adaptation of Rick Riordan's confident writing should not be done with insecure editing. And the problem that arose was that the movies didn't trust that we, the audience, would stick around for the story that Riordan wrote, which honestly baffles me, because how did they think that it got popular to begin with? Like, seriously. It's not true to the story, and it robs us of the depth that we appreciated about the books to begin with. The movie directors didn't even trust Riordan to know his audience well enough to know that the movies would crash and burn. He warned them how badly the adaptation was going to crash and burn, and they still did it anyway. Riordan ain't the Oracle, babes. Failing to save what matters most in the end isn't gonna have a double meaning with a happy ending like it did for Percy Jackson. They inserted so many flashy edits and action scenes there was nowhere to breathe or appreciate the story's progression. The plot just felt stuffed with all the usual attention grabbers, action scenes with far too much action, fabricated suspense with no real reason, and my least favorite, and one that I remember from the movies back in the 2010s, romantic tension.
Welcome home.
The characters themselves were also transformed, and not in a way that benefited the overall story. Suddenly, the anxious satyr is a confident and suave Grover. Annabeth, the brilliant daughter of Athena, goddess of battle strategy, is upstaged by newbie Percy, and speaking of Percy, he somehow survived the years he should not have survived as a kid of the big three. All three of them are aged up, possibly for logistics reasons, probably to fit in some risque jokes that they couldn't get away with for 12-year-olds, even though some in the cast are still just 17, which is a minor.
Their mother's the goddess of love, so you know where that leads. Hey, baby!
And let's jump into that topic too. The camera angles are focused on their bodies. There's a lot of tension with just the staring, the heavy breathing. It just feels a little inappropriate, especially since they're supposed to be 12-year-olds. And emphasizing Chris Columbus's previous successes with the Harry Potter franchise doesn't help the feeling that they're desperately begging for us to watch the movie and trust them, begging for our attention, forgetting the things that got our attention in the first place. In one word, insecurity is the essence of what is wrong with the Peter Johnson movies. And confidence is at the center of how the Percy Jackson TV show on Disney Plus begins to remedy it. At the time of recording, only the TV show trailers have been released, so for all I know, the TV show is just as crappy as the movies. But I have reason to believe that things will be different this time, and different in a good way. For every wrongdoing that the Peter Johnson movie trailers committed, the Percy Jackson TV show trailers chose an equal and opposite reaction. Oh, and flash warning, I'll try to minimize the damage, but it's pretty bad. Perry's trailer was fast and flashies. Percy's is slow and intentional. Peter's is expositionally intense from a dozen different characters saying a dozen different things that are only vaguely related to each other. Percy's not only has a limited number of lines and narrators, but they're also incredibly familiar lines. Because Percival's was just a bunch of epic moments shoved together with no real storytelling to piece it together, while Percy's follows a narrative arc, even though it's just the trailer, introducing Percy to the audience and the audience to the world. Plimbucket Joppin' Squires inserted new and unnecessary major plot developments. Percy Jackson's has 42 references that match the book exactly, and 47 similarities. Heck, Penguin Simp Jockslob's shot of the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art has the building on the right, whereas Perseus Jackson's has it on the left. It's like the TV show trailers used the movie trailers as a guide to what not to do. And the results? They're earning our trust back. But how can we trust a show that's so clearly different? Here we are, page 239. We rocketed through into the darkness. Doesn't sound like a calm and placid ride through the tunnel of love. Annabeth held the Waterland ball, not Percy. And whatever happened to Chiron teaching archery? What's this Luke teaching it stuff? I know, the characters look different. Changes will be made to ensure that the same story is accurately told throughout modalities. We already know from the episode titles that the story is going to be expedited to fit into the limits of a TV show. Throw in the fact that Percy is an unreliable narrator, so the tiny change from first-person POV to all of the different camera angles of a TV show, things are bound to change. That flashback scene with Sally and young Percy isn't even a scene in the books. It's just like a throwaway comment that Sally named Percy after Perseus because Perseus had the good ending. Yay! A good adaptation will utilize such changes to enhance the main ideas, themes, morals, and arcs rather than transform them entirely. And the TV show trailer does just that. I mean, that flashback scene is not included because it's a scene from the book. It's included because it fits Percy's story and enhances his arc from troubled kid to hero teen who just wants to have a quiet life with his family and friends. There's even irony built in that tiny little scene. Perseus is standing triumphant with Medusa's head in his hand, and what is he? A stone statue. The underdog, the victim of godly hubris, won in the end. Not how anyone would have ever imagined it, but things don't have to be perfect or meet expectations to be good. While the TV show trailer does reveal that they've made changes, evidence supports that they're good changes. Riordan chose Walker, Leah, and Ariane to be the Lightning Thief trio because they brought those characters to life. And if we're willing to wait and see how all the puzzle pieces fit together, if we're willing to give this show and its members a chance, something beautiful can come from it. All we gotta do is trust.
You've got your character picked out. You figured out the basic stuff about them. Now it's time to make them your own. Let's change them a little bit. For me, for instance, if I take a god, I put that god in the modern world, and I think, okay, if they were around today, how would that change them? Would it change the way that they talk? Would it change the way they dress? What would they have today that they didn't have back in ancient Greece? Most importantly, are they going to be a good guy or a bad guy? Take that character from the ancient stories and make them your own.